Thank you very much. I would like to thank, it's not just a formality, I want to thank for this very innovative initiative during the International Design Week here in Milan. Instead of rushing back and forth from one stand to the next stand, it's very good to have a time for thinking. This is really a sort of luxury that we want to afford ourselves. I would like to thank Elena Batturina for giving us this opportunity, and I would like to thank Interni with Gilda Boiardi and Francesco Morace for gathering these friends and designers who are dealing with very different topics. I would like to identify some common denominators in my contribution. I am a professor at the Politecnico here in Milan, the technical university. There are many students of mine today. We have started wondering how we can train the designers and engineers of the future. We have been talking about the crisis. We have been talking about the change in paradigm, the new social needs, the topic of sustainability, something we necessarily have to confront ourselves with. And all of this has a direct impact also on our training and how we are going to train future designers and engineers. The new planners will play a completely different role. They will be faced with problems and they will have to identify systemic solutions. They need to take a very broad perspective, combining different disciplines. We are today jumping from fashion to service design, interior design, product design. People tend to be very secretive when it comes to their specific discipline, but as many experts have written, we now have a multidisciplinary approach, most of all when tackling broad and complex problems. So we need to take a broader perspective, otherwise we will never find a solution to these problems. So we try to train our students, most of all at postgraduate level, so that they develop a very systemic perspective, combining products, services, spaces, and a great care for people who always need to lie in the center. So we need to be very human-centered and community-centered. People who are capable of expressing needs, but also resources to find solutions in the future. Designers in the past were planners. Now they are also activists. So they need to do things. They need to get into processes to try and promote a change. We have been talking about the do-it-yourself designer. We are not being asked for solutions today. We need to take a more systemic approach. And then we are searching for a new aesthetics. We shouldn't forget that design is also beauty, and striving for sustainability. Sometimes we have lost the sight of beauty. We have proposed solutions with a limiting impact. Sometimes beauty needs to be one of the goals of designers. Also in the future, sensible and sustainable. The topic this morning is very beautiful. most of all in English language, because it underlines how sustainability is important, matched with reason and being sensible in our approaches. So we need to be very sensible, we need to think before we act, before we start designing. But sensible also contains a link with our perceptions, with our five senses, touching things with our hands, trying to get into the merit of things, of touching them. Going back to different production processes, touching products and fabrics. This is extremely important. Here you see the first slide of my presentation. These are experiments we have been running with some of my students. There are so many of them who have been involved in this project. They have embarked upon unusual projects. Here, for example, is a project dating back to 2009 during the design week, when it was probably less trendy to grow vegetables in your own orchard. We had staged a workshop at Arena in Milan with Paola Trapani. They have been planning for this urban orchard to grow vegetables. So the idea of planning small green surfaces within the city, these small allotments, with Aldo Cibic, we have organized another workshop about sustainability and new solutions in the hosting field. Most of all in a city like Milan, how can you host large groups of people, most of all in green areas? It sounds strange because Milan is not well known for being a green city. We haven't got enough hotels, so we are actually not hosting these visitors in the best way. And I think with this workshop we have proved that you can host visitors in green areas, maybe not in the center of Milan, rather in the suburbs. This is the green camping on the edge of the city. It's not a secondary solution, not an alternative if you couldn't find an hotel room. It needs to be an appealing, a funny solution to spend a nice time in Milan. And then we should also think ahead, think of Expo 2015 here in Milan. We need to come up with solutions to host also young visitors in a different way. More recently, our campus has turned into an open space. University campuses are places where, in theory, everybody can have access, but quite often people are scared. We are in the Bavisa district in Milan, and also the neighbors sometimes have never accessed our university campus. There's room and space for everybody. One morning we have invited them. There was a pilot project. There's garden for everybody with workshops for children, lessons, interactive lessons, in an attempt to make the university campus also a social place where students and professors could meet with the citizens. There are lots of examples of universities worldwide which required a requalification process. They have set a requalification process in motion. Bavisa has already improved over the years, but we think Most of all, when I talk, I don't know, with the person running the cafe just out of the university campus. Well, I've never entered there, despite the fact that I live in the district, because they don't perceive it as being an open place. This experience has generated a lot of enthusiasm, so our students wanted to expand and extend the project, not just a temporary allotment. They wanted to have a long-term project. They have started learning from other examples at international level. Harvard, Stanford, and other important universities have got community gardens, and we don't have them here in Milan. They have convinced me, and we have really started this adventure. This is the temporary garden of Via Montello. This is an example in Melbourne, a professor from Melbourne who has spent some weeks with us working with the students. Together they have decided to implement this project. We have completed the analysis. We are now starting the co-design involving other students and professors at campus level. So the idea of designers as activists who start working, designing processes and not just a final solution, as you have heard earlier this morning. And then a workshop about co-design with all the people living in the district, and then actually planning this allotment and implementing it. We have already talked with the dean of the university and those who are involved with the logistic aspects within the university, and they are very interesting and very supportive of this initiative. It's a project, planning an allotment, a nice hobby, but it could take on a different perspective. It's a design project. You have to consider the layout, the timeline for the project, the resources that are required, and who is going to do what. This is the scheme for the project with a timeline. It should cover 5 years. So it's a mid-term project with a limited timeline, and it's interesting to think that students are implementing it. They will just spend 2 years at the university, and they are building a project which is going to last longer. This is the master plan. My office has actually got windows giving onto this surface. The idea is to combine a collective and individual allotments. This is also the outcome of other surveys. There will be relaxed areas, a teaching center, and of course areas where we will store the equipment. Here you see a layout of how it could look like. We don't know very well the quality of the soil in Milan, whether it should be reclaimed or not. The idea was to have ground in independent vases, large vases, which can be moved, so pots containing land that are easier to move around, so that it's also easier to get public permits. Here you see some project views, small schemes. How do you take a broader perspective? How can these small seeds turn into something more important? Some years ago, we have worked out a research project aiming at extending the scope, mood, emerging users' demands, a European project that I have been coordinating, trying to create very positive visions for the future, searching for sustainable solutions on a very small scale, in smaller contexts, with students from design schools all over Europe, as antennas, so non-professional school hunters searching for sustainable solutions within their own context, and then a sort of brainstorming exercise to work out solutions to be applied elsewhere to create a sort of virtual cycle, so catalyzers of positive visions for the future. Being professionals for the future, they could implement it more effectively. So they have set up networks and platforms to share the contents so that this small positive science could get a wider echo. Today we have at Politecnico, at our university in Milan, thanks to Ezio Manzini and his passion, a broader network involving many universities worldwide. This is the name of the network for social innovation and sustainability, covering all continents, and it's still growing. We have no barriers. It's not an exclusive club. On the contrary, access is free. I think that the Be Open project is a project which heads in this direction, creating a platform to try and systemize and build upon talents. We need our best strengths, all of our ideas to be shared anywhere in the world. So the icon of assigned design has recently talked about collective wisdom, and I think this is a very important sign. Let me just close by quoting Andrea Branti, a master of ours. We are abandoning the era of assigned signature design, the great heroes of design that you see on the cover pages of magazines. So now we have a more anonymous design, which is more dedicated, more sensible, just like testosterone, with more intelligence and more brain. Thank you.